everybody. I'm just going to allow it 10 seconds or so to allow people to join. But as you can see, we're here for our Diversity and Inclusion webinar this morning, and we are joined by TechVets. This session is going to be all about the power of community. But before we make a start with the introductions, I'll just use this time to run you through some of our house rules that we have for all of our webinars here at CISEC. So just to let you know that you will be muted throughout the webinar, but please do type your questions through to us using the Q&A box. We'll have plenty of opportunity for interaction and questions after the talk. So please do type those through to us throughout the webinar, and we'll make sure that we pick those up with you. Hopefully everything is really straightforward for you today, but if you do have any issues at all, please do let us know by emailing us at support@cisec.org, and another member of our team will do their best to try and help you with anything that's going on there. So hopefully you've all managed to get in okay. Hopefully you've had a good week so far and a good start to your morning. Today we have a really special webinar in store as we're joined by James Murphy, who is the CEO of TechVets. So we will be doing further introductions shortly, but just as an overview, James will be discussing the power and the importance of community. We'll hear from James and some of the TechVet members who have successfully transitioned their military backgrounds into cybersecurity careers. And just to let you know, this webinar is being recorded, and we'll make this available on the CISEC website afterwards for members to watch on demand. So please be sure to check your email, as we will be sending around the link later on today, so that you can go ahead and access the recording. So today we have Jane Chappell, who is chairing the discussion. Jane is the co-founder of Arcanum Information Security and has an MBA in International Management and a master's degree in Information Assurance from Royal Holloway. Jane is also a fellow of the British Computer Society and an experienced cybersecurity subject matter expert. Not only does Jane have a huge amount of accolades, she's also an officer in the Army Reserve and was the first woman to command the Land Information Assurance Group, which was the Army's largest cybersecurity unit. So Jane, over to you to introduce the session, and really looking forward to taking up the questions at the end.
Thank you, Sophie. Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be able to introduce James Murphy from TechVets. James is a veteran, a military veteran of 19 years, commencing his career in the Royal Anglian Regiment, where he served for 12 years before transferring to the Intelligence Corps. He's deployed worldwide on operations and has found time in his busy career to become a keen sportsman. He has served latterly in deployment with the Foreign Office in support of the UK defence engagement in East Asia, and during that time was able to complete a degree in Intelligence and International Relations, where he obtained a first-class honours degree. He became the requirements manager then for the strategic intelligence for commanders of the land forces, and continued his operational deployments. After 19 years in the service, James then joined the Government Digital Service as a cyber threat intelligence lead, using his military skills extensively to provide lead strategic intelligence direction to the organisation. He joined TechVets and supported operational activities of their headquarters, and he's given much of his time assisting veterans and service leavers with career guidance and delivering the first TechVets talk at the Royal Signals Blandford Forum Resettlement event. He represents TechVets at career discussions, and he's spoken with the then Foreign Secretary, Jeremy Hunt, and the Defence Minister at the time, Penny Mordaunt. He's established the London chapter as co-lead and hosts the first TechVets chapter events. He's now in the appointment of CEO of TechVets. And according to James, he said it's his land and now his dream job. So he's providing his energies, experience and passion towards forging cybertech career opportunities for veterans. So James is now going to talk about the work that he and his organisation and his team do and the benefits to veterans and career guidance. James, I'll hand this over to you, and I look forward to answering questions and after this presentation.
Thank you very much, Jane, for the introduction. I'm hoping you can see my my slides. Fantastic. Look, first and foremost, it's great to be here, great to have the opportunity to talk to people about the work that TechVets is involved in. And ideally what I want to do is just shine a light on some of the sort of key themes within TechVets, the problems we want to solve and the way that we're trying to solve it. And at the heart of that is always our sort of community approach to how we help individuals embark on new careers in cybersecurity. So, and then we'll finish off as well with some really great accounts from some of our members who have transitioned, as Sophie said at the start, from military careers, all of them coming from slightly different backgrounds and having different sort of obstacles and problems to solve, and different routes into various different disciplines within cybersecurity. So, we all know or have heard or certainly would have read of the problems that we have within industry, the skill shortage. Very, very complex problem. It's not as black and white as people make out, that we can just get more people in. And sometimes what we need is diverse talent to be coming in from other professional areas in other sectors, other industries, and provide them the right support and training to give them their new careers, to support businesses in delivering their cybersecurity across all industries. And this is one of the problems that TechVets is trying to solve. The other one is the sort of traditional pathways that are trodden by military veterans and service leavers when they leave the military tend to be into roles that are already being redefined by shallow AI, automation, machine learning, robotics, etc. And they'll increasingly be impacted over the next 10 years. So what we want to do is to provide them a new way of finding sustainable careers. We have only 4% of military veterans out of the 14,000 that we have leaving every year, moving into information communications, with the majority, as I said, going into those traditional roles. But they have loads of skills, as many people do, coming from diverse backgrounds. They have a professional experience from their military careers, and that includes things like picking up specialist knowledge, oral communication, team working, positive attitude, managing and motivating staff and team members, as well as problem solving, planning and organization, and time management. And these are really, really important soft skills to have. And it's not always about just the technical skills within the cybersecurity industry. What we need to do is basically help them to upskill, help them by creating opportunities, and therefore helping them to get in front of hiring managers. And at TechVets, this is exactly where we come in. We're a non-profit, and we're also a program within RFEA, the Forces Employment Charity. We provide opportunities for veterans, for service leavers, full-time and reservist serving people to join our amazing community, which I said underpins everything we do, to learn and train using leading resources, and to receive valuable employment support. And in doing so, we build on the strengths of veterans to support the UK's digital economy. And we do that within what we regard as our three core pillars: the community, the training and education, and the employment support. And we deliver our services across all three, because you can't just do a 5-day bootcamp course and become a cyber specialist. So that sort of multi-layered approach gives more adequate support for people at all levels, going into all different routes and roles in cybersecurity. I spoke about our community, and we have a Discord community. It contains more than 3,000 members, which is fairly active as well. It also includes loads of veterans, and this is the real importance of our community and the strength of our community. We have a load of veterans who are already experienced in cybersecurity or technology at all levels of seniority, and they provide free, trustworthy advice and support to all of our members, especially those that are new and just starting out on their pathway. And it helps many of those members mitigate the companies out there that are looking to exploit the sort of vulnerable period that an individual has when they're changing careers. And when someone leaves the military, they have a load of funding that they have available to access courses. And we have a lot of companies out there that are offering extortionately priced and often inadequate training that also paints a very misrepresented picture of the truth about salaries. We've all seen these adverts of 70k average salaries. Certainly that is not the case, especially for entry-level positions. Our Discord community, in essence, provides a forum for people to collaborate on ideas, share experience, support each other's training, but also to maintain a close family community that many have within their military service. It's all about paying it forward and supporting each other. We've built 29 strategic partnerships so far, and we've got more waiting, ready to be finalized. And this provides our members with free training, includes our Veterans Digital Cyber Academy through Immersive Labs, Splunk Fundamentals 1 and 2, the Fortinet NSE program, Python Coding Essentials, TryHackMe vouchers, and access to numerous press courses, plus there's plenty more on an ad hoc basis as well. And this basically helps them to upskill in valuable skills that are relevant to industry. And then once they've got those skills, how can we ensure that they can put those to good use and land a role? And this is really quite a challenging experience for them because they don't have industry experience. So they've got to try to overcome that. One of those ways in which they can do that is by articulating their military experience in a way that industry understands. So we provide a CV review service, and that basically enables them to get their CVs to experienced cybersecurity professionals within our community to work through their CV. We also have a Crest CV distribution service, and that gets their CVs out to the 277 Crest member companies across the UK. And then finally, we have a jobs board. And the jobs board is where employers can post their jobs through me, and we don't work with recruitment agencies, we work direct with HR teams, essentially with a ready-made network, and get those people in front of the right individuals so they can start landing those jobs. So in essence, that is TechVets, the 3 core pillars underpinned by the community, but providing support with education and training, and then getting them in front of hiring managers for the employment support. Now, what I've got is Meredith, who's basically conducted a load of interviews with some of our members, and these are really awesome interviews with some great information about individuals who have gone through that process of leaving the military and moving into cybersecurity careers.
Hi, I'm Meredith and I work with James at TechVets. My role is all about getting the message out there to UK service leaders.
James, unfortunately, we can't hear her.
Oh no. Okay.
We did at the start, but it's very quiet. You perhaps need to just share your sound as well, or crank it right up.
Let's see.
To them and how it can support others. So here's what they had to say. So Andrew, can you tell us what your military background was?
I spent 20 years as a Royal Air Force intelligence officer. So exploiting, understanding, analysing, disseminating information was second nature. So it was obvious to try and use this skill set in a commercial environment. And cyber, being a very information heavy environment, lent itself to that perfectly.
So what made you leave the RAF and pursue a commercial role?
It was family circumstances. I was at the stage in life where I certainly had a lot of fun running around doing all sorts of adventurous bits and pieces that you can with the military. But I now had 2 small children who I had to provide a level of stability for. And so I needed something that could provide the right environment for my children to grow up.
The job that you're in now, can you tell us a bit more about your role and your specialism?
I'm a cyber assurance manager for a small to medium-sized cyber specialist company called 6.6 based in London. And my role is to try and give an information asset owner, a system owner, the highest level of confidence that the information and their systems that they have are going to be protected and they're going to be safe. And there are many different ways in which we can try and improve or provide assurance for any particular system, whether that's technical, procedural, physical or managerial.
And how do you feel your experience in the RAF translated into that role?
I'm coming into a technical environment, but from an information background. So arguably my technical ability is perhaps not as strong as those who've been through university and already been working in this environment. But what I bring is an awful lot of life experience, a lot of those soft skills, what we in the military used to refer to as staff skills. So the ability to manage people, manage time, manage other resources, to communicate effectively, to analyse, to work our way through ambiguity.
And what do you think were the main challenges when you transitioned from the military to the civilian sector?
The hardest part was actually deciding what I wanted to do and how I was going to make best use of the skills and experience that I had. So there's an awful lot of soul searching because everybody's transitional journey is different. No one's is the same. I needed to work out what was going to best support my family, and therefore which parts of the entire employment market, which is my oyster at the time, would allow me to achieve those aims. So I tried to discount certain parts of the employment spectrum, and then what was left, I then applied my skill set and my experience to, plus the fact is it's something I want to do, and that left me with a reasonably small number. This sort of future-proofing, this sort of planning process that I went through, obviously not being prescient and looking at forwards to what was going to happen with COVID, but that planning that I did for a bad Brexit and how I was going to future-proof my career against something like that actually proved to be a bit of a blessing in disguise, because obviously what happened with the recruitment market, almost every industry took a heck of a downturn apart from cybersecurity.
So when you were planning your kind of extraction and you had focused in on the sectors that you could see a future with, what courses then did you go after, or did you think, okay, this one would be good for me to do?
I've had an interest in computers from early days going through school. It's just that the military, through my line, through the intelligence specialisation, didn't really offer at that point in time a cyber discipline, as it were. Obviously things have changed now since I've left, and there's lots of cyber opportunities still within the military for people to pursue. So I had to start looking at the Career Transition Partnership, as well as a variety of other external military organisations. There are a number of organisations all out there, either run by or run for ex-military personnel, all have their own excellent support networks where you can take advice from people who've already been through that transition process. And that was really how I found my way into the TechVets arena. For me, one of the primary strengths of TechVets is its wonderfully diverse forums. If there is a flavour of cyber that you're interested in, doesn't matter how unusual or how niche, you will find somebody else in the TechVets forum who shares the same passion, the same interest. There's a lot of commonality, a lot of overlap. So things like the forums such as the transitions forum, the qualifications and trainings forums are really, really useful. It brings together people who've obviously been in your shoes and who are now in the commercial space, who are willing to feed back into it and offer up their experience, their advice. Because one of the most unsettling things about transition is, as I alluded to earlier, you're the only one going through your particular type of resettlement. Everyone else's is different. So because of that, you're kind of doing everything for the first time. So trying to find validation, trying to find positive feedback that what you're doing, the effort you're putting in is right, is really difficult. But having something like the TechVets forum, where you can jump in and say, hi guys, Andy here, thinking of doing this, I've done X, Y, and Z, what do you think? And what's great about it is you'll get, at times, some brutally blunt feedback. No, that's dirty rubbish, don't do that, chin that off completely, look at this instead. Right, got it. And that's because they're kindred spirits, if you like. That's actually quite reassuring. It's okay, even though I've never met you before, you're here for the same sort of reason, and I'm going to take the advice that you're offering and see where it takes me.
If you've made any mistakes, or if you could go back to when you were doing your resettlement, what would you do differently, or what advice would you give to others?
Our primary failing as military people is we don't know how to value ourselves. And here I'm talking about how we should price ourselves. In the military, everybody knows what everyone else earns. You look at the rank on someone's shoulder, you can look at the published pay grades, you know exactly what everyone's on. In this commercial world, it's not like that. You can have two people doing the identical same job with many tens of thousands of pounds difference between the two individuals. And one of the early mistakes I made was critically undervaluing myself when it came to that all-important question of, so what are your salary expectations? And the very first interview that I'd gone into, I hadn't given this any thought at all. So I picked a number out of the air that I thought was about reasonable. And at the drop of a hat, the interviewer said, yes, we can work with that. And I walked out of there feeling 10 foot tall, brilliant. I just literally added £10,000 to my, at the time, salary. But then after a period of time, having chats to a few people, having a bit more research, started to become a little bit more savvy about actually what should I be asking for. I realised that I've been selling myself short by multiples of £10,000. So understanding what we are worth, what we bring, and how to quantify that with the numbers after the pound sign. That's the thing which I think we're really quite bad at. We don't harp on about our successes and our achievements and how great we are. And I think that hinders us when it comes to salary negotiations. We're great at working as teams, we're great at communicating, we're great at problem solving, we bring all these wonderful skills. Skills in packages that are very well honed that you probably don't find in Civvy Street as readily. Put us in front of somebody who's asking us how much we're worth, and we struggle. So my overarching message to everyone going through transition, through the resettlement process, would be to really think long and hard about what you are actually valued at. And one of the first places, the best places you can start as an ex-service member is something called the capitation rates. The capitation rates are published by the MOD, by each of the 3 services, and it breaks down your salary as well as the pension contributions and a few other bits and pieces that you get. And it gives you an overall number for what you are valued at, what it costs the MOD to employ you. And that, for everybody who is leaving the military, should be your starting point. For a number of you who've perhaps not looked at your capitation rates before, some of the numbers might surprise you. I'm really worth that much to the MOD? Yes, you are. You absolutely are. And if you are settling for an overall package less than that number, then you're starting to sell yourself short. And that was the early mistake that I made. Thankfully, didn't fall into it. I was able to dodge that one.
That's absolutely brilliant advice. Thank you so much for joining us for this webinar, Andy. We appreciate it very much.
Cheers, and good luck to everyone who's listening.
So next up, we're speaking to Ben Full. Welcome, Ben. Could you tell us a bit about what your military background was?
So I left the Air Force in 2019 after 16 years as an engineering officer doing aerosystems engineering. So working on aircraft systems, weapons. I worked on a number of different aircraft platform types over my career, and then did 4 years in defence intelligence in the Ministry of Defence, and then finished up doing a squadron commander's job doing engineering support at RAF Brize Norton. And
what made you decide to leave the military and take the leap into cyber?
So I took my option point on my pensionable service, and because of my family situation, I wanted to spend more time at home with a very young child. I decided that would be the right point to leave. At the point I put my option in, I had effectively a year to decide what I wanted to do. I ended up going to one of the early TechVets events in when I was doing my London job, and thought, well, that's interesting. I'd never really considered cybersecurity before. This sounds interesting. I'm interested in tech. I'm interested in the internet and how it might be used as a weapon of choice in the future. So I started doing some research and some background on that, and thought this might be quite interesting. I'll give that a go. What that meant at the time, I had no idea. I didn't really appreciate what the cybersecurity industry entailed up to that point. It was all just pen testing for me. In my mind at that point, obviously it's way more than that. And chatting to people at that TechVets event, people were talking about cyber threat intelligence. I thought, well, I can do intelligence. I do intelligence stuff at the moment. Let's give that a go. Let's go down that route and see what transferable skills I can take there, and see how that pans out.
And so, where has it led it to you now? What are you doing now?
I'm a threat intelligence analyst with CGI, who are a large IT and business services consultancy firm. Fantastic job. I spend my day looking at threats on the internet for our clients. and alerting them and looking at how we can better defend client infrastructure using a threat-based approach.
And how did you find the transition going from the military into, you know, a big global commercial firm?
The transition was hard because I started with CGI 2 days before lockdown started. So I went from being on the biggest RAF station in the country with 200 people working on my team, with 5,000 people across the station, to sitting in my home office staring at a screen for a lot of hours a day, and it was hard. It was lonely at times. It was not meeting anyone from the company that I work with, not meeting anyone that were on my team, and trying to adapt completely and utterly to a totally different mindset, but also different ways of working. I'd never worked remotely. I'd never really worked at home before, and going from being used to doing in-person discussions and chats and getting stuff done to doing everything over Teams or Zoom was a real challenge. It worked fine, but as we all have done or have had to deal with over that period, but it was not what I was expecting.
What qualities do you think got you through that difficult time in terms of qualities or experience that shaped you in the military?
Sheer bloody mindedness for a start, but my wife was very supportive. She was at home with on maternity leave, and so I always had a friendly face and a familiar face to talk to.
And looking back at who you were when you were, when you signed off, when you decided you were going to leave, if you could give that person any advice, what advice would it be?
Keep doing what you're doing. Just because I'm not wearing a blue uniform anymore, I spent the last 18 months in trousers or shorts and a hoodie. It doesn't take away from the person that you are when you were serving. Keep meeting people, keep talking to people, keep doing the things that make you feel like the person that you are or you want to be. So keep doing the fairs, keep doing the learning. It's a transition of job and career and lifestyle. It doesn't change necessarily who you are as an individual.
That's a really good piece of advice. Thank you so much, Ben, for joining us. Ron, could you tell us a bit about what your military background was?
Yeah, so I was in the Army in the Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers for coming close to 14 years as a weapon systems engineer stroke armourer. So my career was entirely focused on like mechanical engineering, nothing cyber, nothing technical IT wise. But my career was cut short by medical discharge. I'd injured my back. It was an ongoing problem, so I rapidly had to look into different career path. So I saw there was a lot of people going towards cyber. I'm technically minded myself anyway, and always been somewhat of a geek, for want of a better word. You know, I really enjoy IT and computers generally, and it was something that I thought maybe I could turn my hand to.
Okay, so you've decided to, well, you've got to leave because of being medically discharged, and you've set your sights on cyber. How did you get to where you are now as a cybersecurity consultant?
If I'm quite honest, it was a lot of hard work. I had some time in hospital to sort of probe what might be good careers for me, but obviously the fields were quite limited with the back injury, limited mobility. That took all the engineering off the table and anything that I'd been previously suited to. So I was fortunate that I had some sort of like career mentorship, slight career mentorship from occupational therapists and things with suggestions. And they suggested growth areas, and cyber came up again, which was already in the back of my mind. Just because I've known other people whilst I was serving that were in those disciplines anyway and were destined to end up on Civvy Street in those roles. So I started like self-learning through, I think it was the likes of Cybrary. So I started trying to pick up the materials of Network Plus and Security Plus and just seeing how it stuck. I realized it was staying in there quite well. I've bumped into TechVets. Now, I can't quite remember how I came across it, but once I was in there, like the wealth of knowledge that was just thrown at me from every direction. Any question I had, there was more than 10 answers to each one. from different people in different areas and different fields. That was like a really valuable resource. And from there, I could get a steer on where it was in cyber that I might fit best, whether it be some sort of defensive role or offensive, or even sort of information security, like auditing and management kind of areas. But I realized early on that I was quite technical and hands-on. I did enjoy the hacking side of it. I enjoyed the finding vulnerabilities and breaking things down. So like from my mechanical mindset, I would look at things and sort of explode it in my head and see the working parts and how things connected. And that sort of applies really well to what I do in offensive cyber. But TechVets was absolutely the biggest tool that I've come across during resettlement. And from there, I knew that people from non-technical backgrounds could make it, albeit with a lot of hard work.
So did you use any specific courses or access to academies within TechVets to help you retrain?
When I'd started into TechVets, there wasn't a huge amount that was on offer at the time, although now the offering's like insane. The courses and other things that James has pulled in, unbelievable. And I have taken advantage of a few little areas like along the path. I was fortunate enough to sort of like be the guinea pig on a couple of little areas. And one in particular for me was the QSTM course. It was offered a few days, were offered free by PGI, who run the QSTM course. And then I had the option to pick up the final, I think it was 2 days, and the exam for a discounted sort of rate. And off the back of that, that enabled me to qualify as a check team member, which meant that when I started with my new employer, I instantly started like a rung up, which had it not been for TechVets, that course would have been a £2,500 course, which would have been, I wouldn't say prohibitively expensive, because I was fortunate enough to have my medical discharge grant. But at the same time, I didn't want to just throw money away on the off chance of passing an exam.
If you rewind the clock and you were to talk to either yourself during that year of resettlement or someone similar to you who is just thinking about, pulling the trigger on leaving the army, what would be the kind of key piece of advice you would share with them?
Like I say, with the medical discharge piece, I didn't really have a resettlement window other than just a bit of time to try and do some courses like in the evenings. But other than that, I was, being quite treated in things up until I was out. But again, I was lucky, like I say, I had a little cushion of money thrown my way at the expense of the spine. But if I'd had the full year's resettlement, I would say definitely plan, like focus on the area you want to live, find out what jobs are available. If you want to go and be, some like a SOC analyst, is there anywhere near where you want to live that has a SOC? Or if you want to work in pen testing, is there a company anywhere near you that can take you on? Or do you already have opportunities that are going to allow you to work from home? At the junior end, working from home is a luxury that you'd be lucky to find. Although it is a bit more common now, thanks to COVID. If there's one upside, it is that. If I could go back, I'd take easily a 2-year step back and start it all.
Okay.
Line up the courses you need.
Thank you so much, Ron, for joining us tonight. I think your advice will be really valuable for a lot of people who are watching and listening.
Well, thanks. Hopefully it wasn't all too much waffle.
No, not at all. Hi, I'm Meredith and I work.
Right, brilliant. So that was quite insightful, and we were really lucky to be joined by 3 people who had different backgrounds. One coming from a sort of information background, one coming from an aerospace, aeronautical sort of engineering background, and one coming from a mechanics background. But there were some really key trends there, which, there was a lot of military talk. Clearly it was focused on people leaving the military, but there were some key trends there that are appropriate to anyone coming from a diverse background. If you have had a career in anything other than cyber, then you will bring something to the party that people that are born and bred in cybersecurity don't have. A different life experience, a different professional experience. But certainly the key things that I picked up there, and I made a couple of notes as we were going through, but there are all sorts of different reasons why people want to change careers. It may be that excitement around cybersecurity. It may be because of your family circumstances. Either way, there is no right or wrong reason for you wanting to embark on a cybersecurity career. whatever is your reason is exactly what it should be. But additionally, there's different routes. You know, one's gone into cyber threat intelligence there, one's gone into it as a information assurance, you know, and one's gone into the offensive side of stuff as a consultant in pen testing. You know, so again, don't just focus on pen testing. Don't just focus on that. There's such a wide variety of roles and routes into cybersecurity, from the very non-technical to the very technical. And again, that was something that I took from those 3 interviews. And I suppose one of the key points as well is that it's never easy. If anything is worth doing, it's not going to be easy. And if you want to get into cybersecurity, as Ronnie said on that final interview, it was very much a lot of hard work. But you've got to be willing to put the hard work in. And if you're willing to do that, then opportunities will become available to you as you're moving along your journey. But that's it, Jane. I suppose we can now move into discussion and Q&A and whatnot.
Thanks very much, James, and some really helpful advice there. Useful, I wouldn't say just insights, but real life experiences. Obviously, one of the things we found, and I'll just pick up on a couple of the points that those interviewees made, that when I founded my company, Arcanum, 13.5 years ago, we didn't realise we were quite going to have as many former service personnel on our books as we have at the moment, with 65% of them are either veterans or reservists. So I think one of the things that we find, and that it comes back to some of the points that were being made in those interviews, is the expectations of what's required to change or transition careers, even if you've been carrying out some work in the cyber field within the service. And we spend quite a lot of time mentoring, taking calls from people, giving careers advice, because it's what we do. It's the right thing to do for people who are leaving, you know, just get speculative calls or maybe contacted through somebody who's working for us, who knows a friend or a colleague who's leaving. And Ron latterly was talking about training, and it's really, really key, we find, to, before committing any of your resettlement grant, any funding whatsoever to training, do your research. And you've probably got experience of that too, isn't it? Because we find time and time again that people are saying, I'm taking this course and this course, this course. And we say, well, why? Why is that? And are you finding, what's the sort of guide? There's a lot you've got to offer as well, but it's really focusing on the right part of the right discipline within the career, the whole breadth of disciplines in the career sector that someone wishes to follow.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, generally speaking, we get that sort of standard question from new members. I want to get into cybersecurity. Where do I start? And, you know, I always reply, look, you've got to go away and do some research and come back with a slightly more focused request. And there's a really, really useful tool, a resource that people can use. It's one of the best things that's come onto the internet in the recent sort of years. And that's the UK Cybersecurity Council's website. And if you go onto the UK Cybersecurity Council's website and go into the careers part, you can access their careers route map. And they basically explain the 16 cybersecurity disciplines. And it's a great tool for someone to go into and dive into the various bits. They've got all sorts of information about the skills, the responsibilities, the sort of different levels of roles within that discipline, as well as some of the things like what is a relevant diverse experience, i.e., you know, I think they link things like archaeology to digital forensics and whatnot. Sometimes it's a bit loose, but it gets you thinking about the potential skills and experience that you may have that you can bring to bear on cybersecurity in various disciplines. But it is a really challenging question, and I think again, we have so much on offer that we have people coming in and sometimes ticking everything. They want everything. They just want to collect all the stuff to make up for the fact that they don't have relevant industry experience. And what they end up doing is having a really shallow knowledge in loads of things, rather than actually specializing in something which is going to really get the interest of a hiring manager. So we try to do a lot of work up front to get people to pick a route, but we want to use a lot of open source stuff, because that gives people the opportunity to have a feel for something. And if it's not right for them, then it's cost them nothing other than time. And there are so many incredible resources out there. If you want to embark on a cybersecurity career and you're going from zero skills, you know, you can go to Professor Messers on YouTube. Fantastic resource, industry recommended. It ticks all of the modules for CompTIAs. foundational certifications, and they're really good foundational modules as well. There's all sorts out there.
As you say, there's a great deal of free training out there. Amazon and also Google have a great deal on their websites too, for, if you don't mind, a few of the sales follow-up questions afterwards or so, which you have to sort of put to one side. But there's some really good online training to start you off, as is with the Open University, for some really basic level, if anybody.
Oh yeah, their introduction. Yeah, their introduction to cybersecurity is something we recommend. Really, really good.
Leads me on to the salary expectations too, because earlier on in those interviews, we were talking about, you know, not valuing or undervaluing yourself. There's a counter situation, almost argument with that, as well as all the adverse is the overvaluation. It's finding the balance, and it is a difficult one, isn't it? And we had some really good advice about looking at your capitation rates. Something that to bear in mind, and you'll be able to reiterate this, James, is from the amount of experienced people that you've put through the organisation and given guidance to, is there is also a tendency to aim for, because, you know, understanding our individual's worth, to aim for a higher salary, or sort of the top end of it. But of course, alongside that, organisations, whatever they may be, are also looking for some tangible, relevant experience. So I think it's the expectation management for both parties, really. And you know, it's a difficult one to try and play off, well, I think I'm worth this, and an organisation is only offering a particular level of salary, so someone may wish to look elsewhere. And it's an art, not a science, isn't it? Because
it is.
The experience is a hard thing. You've got that in spades, but it's just not in the sector that you're moving into.
Yeah, and I think there's no right or wrong approach to this either. There's just hints and tips and advice that people can, you know, take bits of and apply accordingly. Everyone's unique. Everyone's got a different circumstance. But I think, you know, first and foremost, the one thing that I did, which helped me tremendously, was I had a bracket of 3 salaries, 3 figures. One was, if I earned a penny less, I wouldn't be able to pay the bills. So that my lowest possible salary that I could get, where I could still, you know, pay for stuff. Then it was the top one was, what is the highest possible salary that I could possibly gain, which is still within the realms of the possible and based on industry information. And then the middle one was my current salary that I was on, plus my change in circumstances, i.e. an addition of healthcare and dental care, which I was already, that was included in my, for free within my military service.
Of course.
And the commute, you know, because I left the military where I was walking 5 minutes to work every day and went into a role where I was paying £735 a month for a train ticket. You know, and it's incredible how much that can impact you if you haven't planned ahead. And what that enabled me to do, as many now that take on this advice, is that when you're in front of an employer and they say, what are you worth? Actually, whatever figure you come up with, if it's a job that you're really passionate about and you're happy to take a slight drop in your salary, you can do so confident that you know that you're still going to be able to pay the bills, and that sustainable career is going to help you to continue to grow that salary. But, you know, again, as you say, Jane, that there is this tendency sometimes to look at these horrible adverts out there, and I've seen so many of them. The sort of 70k average salary, we can get you to be a cyber specialist, and here's a three course, 5 day times 3 foundation course, which, you know, it's not going to make you a cyber specialist because you've got to learn the skills. You know, you can't drive a tank just because you can drive a car, and therefore this gives a sort of misrepresented picture of what is actually an average salary. But if someone's coming into industry from fresh and they're taking, let's say, a junior penetration tester role, actually the average salary is around 28 to 35,000 pounds. It's not the 50, 60, 70 that you're seeing on these adverts. And, you know, but the ability to negotiate is really key. And that's where I would recommend to people to get with people they know, professionals they know, and run practice sort of question and answer sessions and an interview sort of style with them to really bottom out how you're going to answer these questions.
How much with the organisation advice that you give, do you sort of team people up with those who already have got some experience having settled into the new civilian career? Do you sort of do that as part of your buddying sort of advisory? How does that work, James?
That's a really awesome question and very relevant. I've just had a chat because I'm the only employed person at TechVets, and I have Meredith, who's the consultant, and Christy, who handles PR. But other than that, I rely on volunteers, and all of these volunteers are veterans who are already working in cyber or tech. And we've had a number of discussions over yesterday about a new service that we're looking to plan for, where we'll have a group of professionals that when a new member comes in, they'll be able to get an hour of time to just get that initial conversation, that almost like a consultancy type service, where learn a little bit about the background of the individual and what they think they want to do. Here's some signposts to where you can start, and here's some ideas of sort of career pathways and the likes. We haven't done that initially, but that's something that happens informally. Everyone in our community wants to support the person next to them. So when someone posts a question, if it's not something that can just be answered in a simple response, then people will be teeing each other up with calls. We have chat functions in there, we have private messaging functions in there, and we had one the other day where a young man was looking for a new role. He was interviewing for an information security consulting role. There was a bit in there about 27001 that he wasn't quite sure about how to present it, and he asked the question, and one of the guys said, "Cool, I've got half an hour this evening. Let's jump on a call." And that guy ended up landing the role. That was the bit that was missing, which was great.
So that really worked out very well, but it takes time, effort, and it can be a little bit not exactly demoralizing, but it can be a difficult time with the whole transitioning, can't it? Having the tenacity to stay with it, and seeking the advice and talking to other people is absolutely invaluable. Slightly an aside for this, but totally related, James, I noticed that, well, I can't help but notice, being a fellow Defence Recognition Scheme award holder ourselves, that you are too. And I thought I'd just raise that here, because to those of you who are not aware, the Armed Forces Covenant is a pledge by the nation to support our veterans, and there are various aspects. So there's welfare, there's housing, there's support to families. It applies to all aspects of life, and organisations that sign up to it are saying that they will provide extra support, if you like, to veterans, reservists, also adult cadet volunteers, because they're working within that community too, and their partners and their families, so they're treated with fairness and respect. Part of that is employment, and that's a huge part of this, as well as the other aspects of welfare support. So I was just going to say that organisations who have this, that you may be looking to, whoever's listening, or those of you come across your path, James, who are looking to apply, may see this on someone's website or on some sort of literature. So it really means not just forces friendly, but there will be an understanding in that organisation of requirements and the differences that veterans have. Some of the organisations that you have a lot of contact with, and no doubt have that membership, or achieved that award too, haven't they?
Yeah, don't get me wrong, there are still a lot of companies that have the badge that don't actually deliver on what they're signed up to do. But that being said, it is a much healthier environment for people looking for diverse talent in general. And clearly the veteran community part of this scheme is clearly that is focused on the community that I support. But diversity in cyber is something that is a very hot topic, because people realise that if they don't do something about bringing in diverse talent, they're not going to be plugging the gaps they have for the next 5-10 years as we wait for these big sort of national programs to kick in. But the importance of the Defence Employment Recognition Scheme is that it's there, and once you have it, you are able to be held to account to a certain extent. But there are increasing number of companies that are very keen to employ veterans and service leavers, and are making really great gains in how they do that. Now, clearly, if someone's had a background which is very diverse, like the military, where it's quite incredibly difficult to some commercial environments, then a program approach is often the best way. And there are so many companies looking to put together programs, or already have a program in place, which helps get them in, gets them onboarded, gets them understanding the business, the various departments and functions around the business, as well as giving them on-the-job training and maybe even support to gain some certifications as well. And this is really key, because it also means that at the end of that program, that company has someone who is a far more suitable candidate than just getting someone straight off of the CV sift. So that can be really important, and it's certainly helped a number of veterans gain employment.
One of the things that's come out of the Armed Forces Covenant too is now it's in legislation, is if veterans meet the interview and eligibility criteria, they are guaranteed an interview. So that's made a huge difference too. And I know most people are aware of that, but I just thought I'd mention that. So because there were sometimes difficulties around that for people trying to attend interviews. You know, you'd probably be overseas at that time, or maybe on a deployment when you call for an interview. They have to make provisions somehow to be able to accommodate that interview, whether it's remotely, in person, or whatever it is. So they just bear that in mind for anyone who's applying for roles too. But with the advice that's given by some organisations like TechVets and the many others who form your partnership too, all this information should be fairly forthcoming. But there's a great deal to take in at this time, whether you're returning as a veteran to a different type of career or whether you're a service leaver. There is just matters to take on, but there's a lot of support out there and a great deal of help. And everyone I speak to as a fellow veteran is willing to have a chat and give experience of the valuable experience that they've had and how it may help others, or in new areas of guidance that are coming up. Also, and as you say, the UK Cyber Security Council, which has just appointed its new chief executive in a permanent role this week, is a really, really good, fantastic place to start.
It is.
The breadth of disciplines in cyber is huge, as we said. It's not always a technical role, though many people will gravitate or wish to take up that role, particularly if they've come from sort of an engineering or an IT or some sort of even other technical comms background, particularly. Yep. But there are many of the compliance, the auditing, governance, which is a huge part of cybersecurity, very much overlooked by many organisations. The whole management of risk and the treatment of risk; those are all areas. Do you have a number of people who are looking for areas in that sort of compliance side and governance risk too as well, James?
Yes, not enough, because the demand is very high. I think there's more organisations out there now that are looking to apply a good, robust cultural approach to control, access control and processes within their organisation. That's where your sort of compliance stuff comes in quite nicely, and your risk management comes in. And then there's a lot of automation and a lot of focus on instant response at the sort of technical end of things. But because you can really help lower the risk of being breached with good compliance, there is huge demand for it. And especially now where the risk matrix has got exponential increase on the amount of cells on that spreadsheet, and purely because we now have so many people working from home and using their own home internet, etc. So yeah, huge demand. And I think anyone who's worked with information or secure systems, which generally everyone in the military has done at some point, then you already understand some of the principles around managing the risk and understanding the threats to that information that you're storing. So it's a really nice transferable route for military service leavers. But again, you mentioned that the wide variety. You don't need to go in. If you're very early on in your journey, get yourself in the door in business development, sales, HR, anything you can do where you're immersed in a company that is dealing with nothing but cybersecurity. You'll learn through osmosis alone, and plus have support to develop your technical skills in a very relevant company, which sometimes can be a really good opportunity for someone to start out if they're very early on. And that's something that we suggest to a lot of people as well. We put a lot of people into sort of business development type roles and pre-sales, and people really scoff at sales, but no one gets a salary if people aren't selling stuff.
Actually, in those sort of roles, interpersonal skills, which majority of personnel leaving the forces have, because you've had to be part of a team, you've had to be so dependent on each other and trust each other so very much. So just reiterating what you're saying there, indeed, there's a great deal of information to be found and also experience to be gained from working in another role other than cyber within an organisation. Understanding how the organisation or the business works, what is key to it, what's important to it, what its drivers are, because it operates in a completely different way to a military organisation. There are similarities, but there are also some remarkable differences. And we're seeing a great deal of development in the operational technology space too. So as an engineer going into some areas such as that, cybersecurity has now become much more, belatedly so, but it's now happening due to regulations such as the Network Information Systems Directive. So there's an opportunity to transfer into cyber from an extant engineering career.
And it's not just one thing. That, I mean, so again, there is the cybersecurity industry, but actually cybersecurity pervades all industries, all sectors. It's every organization has to consider how they're managing and securing their data. You know, even market stall owners are using electronic payment methods these days. So there is threats and risks everywhere, and therefore, you know, cyber is quite a big growth area.
Yes, a highly competitive environment. There is a huge shortage of people, as we've heard this a lot over the news recently, but this has been the case with cyber for the last few years. Getting the right sort of people into it, people with the right, not certifications, qualifications, but also the right the interest, the mindset, the enthusiasm to do it. That's the key thing, because if you're interested and enthusiastic, you will learn, you'll pick up what is required of you, and you'll flourish and develop in that particular sector of the career path that you've chosen. I don't know if we've got any further questions coming up at all, but I think we've just got a couple of minutes before we round off. Is there anything you wish to add, James, that we've not covered at all in this? We've tried to sum up a number of areas from what we've heard, what you as an organisation offer, and also the amount of help that's out there. And I think from what you said too, there'll be further organisations contacting you regarding offering that sort of help for mentoring, so to spread the load a little bit, so you can put people in touch with those who will give them some valuable experience, advice about you know, what to do when they're leaving the service, and sort of certifications or the path to take, just or any questions they have. You know, it's really useful to talk to someone who's been through it all. It
is. I think for anyone really, it's that combination of doing your own research, but networking with industry professionals to get behind the scenes, understanding, real-time understanding. Be confident in what you're doing, but don't be too harsh on yourself. If you're not getting something, you know, take a breather, take a step away, try a different approach. It's not gonna be an easy journey. It will be a lot of hard work, but the rewards are incredible, because the careers that you can get at the end of it, phenomenal.
And of course, the we just got excuse me. Yeah, the network is there to support you, of veterans, of service leavers. Just bear with me. There's one message just coming through. I'm just trying to see what it is.
There's one from Peter about GRC, and actually NIST.
Yes.
You know, NIST is something that's on the rise. You know, it's certainly it's massive in the US, because it's been legislated now for all defence contractors, for the Department of Defence over there. I mean, clearly it's increasing its you know, how many organisations are using it in the UK as well. Indeed,
there's online, and there are various companies that are offering NIST training, the foundation, so to that's within the American standards. So it's worth have a look on the NIST website, and there's a series of special publications, the 800 series, which give a whole lot of open source advice, quite technical in some areas, but it's worth having a look through if you just want to spend a rainy afternoon reading through it all. Just what's out there. James, thank you very much for your time today, also for arranging for Meredith and the other members of your I won't say team, but have come to your organisation to been through the process with you, to give their time as well to have those interviews. It's been invaluable, and thank you very much for those who've joined us today. I hope you found was useful. I'm sure James is open to contact. His details are on the TechVets website, so do get in touch if you wish to take up any of their services. And likewise, Arcanum, if you wish to contact me, you can obtain my details from the website, and we're happy to give advice and guidance too.
Amazing. Thanks ever so much, Jane.
Thank you very much. We'll just close off now because we're just coming up to the hour. Thank you very much indeed, everyone.